Hello, welcome back to another stream. Today we're going to be looking at the early game again, and I've had quite a few requests to test the point defenses that I didn't do in the other video, and that's mainly because I've had previously such poor results using PD and flak in some of my other videos that you may have watched. But that was more late game technology or mid to late game technology, so let's see how the early game point defenses work against early torpedoes. So in this fleet we've got our massed frigate fleet, which is the same ones we've used in the previous video. Torpedoes, missiles, torpedo computer, just basic technologies that you're going to get in that first 30, 40, 50 years probably. Some of you might be really good players and get a lot better technology, but this is just for the your average person. Versus the destroyer, it's been suggested that I use this medium lasers, two small lasers, 2-point defenses. We've got picket combat computers and just a mix of basic weapons and defenses. I put the auxiliary fire control on to try and get us a bit better chance to hit. So you can opt for another point defense, but then I think you're losing so much firepower, and you get to this problem of diminishing returns where you just lose too much firepower compared to trying to defend against all the missiles or torpedoes, and they just end up just wiping you because you're just not doing enough damage. Now in this fleet we are going mono fleet to test 85 destroyers against 170 frigates. And keep in mind, frigates do multiplicative damage against the destroyers, so it'll be interesting to see how this battle goes, whether destroyers can overwhelm the frigates or whether those torpedoes will just still wipe out the destroyers. Let's find out.
Hostile fleet assets engaged.
Big mix of blue lasers there, the torpedoes going in, all the point defenses firing. Losses on both sides. Now losing a bunch of frigates. Destroyers might be doing alright here. Let's just have a look at the damage. The blue lasers are doing well, small and medium. Torpedoes only 6,000 damage to hull, so point defenses are working well. Have we got, yeah, the point defenses there 3,885, so they are working well. Any damage to armor and damage to shields. See our firepower is dropping quickly, so a lot of ships are retreating, plus a lot of deaths. We've lost, what, that's about 60 frigates. Okay, so you lost about 70 odd frigates versus the whole fleet of destroyers, which is probably what you'd expect. So if you can afford to have a whole fleet of destroyers in the early game to wipe out the enemy's frigates, and you know they're coming at your frigates, and that's a good option. And we didn't take many losses either, so we've lost what did we start off with? 85. So we've lost eight destroyers, where they've lost 70 odd frigates. So, and you look at the build cost to replace those losses, that's 11,400 versus 2,000 alloys. So that's a good victory for the destroyers, but we'd expect that. And I don't think many people in the early part of the game are going to have the resources to spend that much on frigates and destroyers just one type of ship. You can, but it is a big risk, because if someone comes at you with even a fleet of corvettes, they're going to go in there and wreck those frigates. Or if someone invested in cruisers instead of frigates, then these destroyers are going to have a bad day. Alright, so let's see how the destroyers would do in a combination fleet, which is more likely. And keep in mind, this fleet was pretty big as well. We went up to 170 fleet capacity, which is well beyond early game. So for this battle, we've got a combination fleet here versus our frigate. I've used the fleet capacity at about 80, because that's probably what people are going to have by that year 30, 40 period if you're doing all right. And I am assuming you're playing pretty well. If you've got less than this, then you just scale the numbers down a bit and it's similar results. Now you may or may not have cruisers by year 30 or 40, but I'll assume you do. For cruisers, I've gone with just basically a Brawler type ship. This is just going to be to whack the shields down and then do damage to the armour and hull and try and impact those frigates a lot. We've got the armour shields mix. I put the auxiliary fire controls on there to try and increase our hit chance. And this is one of the few techs you're going to have early. You may get shield capacitors, but the other techs, you may have afterburner, but the other ones you're going to get a bit later in the game, so there's no point trying that for this build. Just a simple line computer so we can close to medium range and try and fire on those frigates. We've got our same destroyers we used last time with our point defences that were really effective with the lasers. So we'll see if this is enough point defence, and we've got enough firepower here to really eat into these 80 frigates with our 8 cruisers and 24 point defence destroyers. So that's basically 3 destroyers for 1 cruiser. I thought that was a pretty good ratio. So let's see if these frigates can overwhelm this fleet prior to these guys being able to do enough damage to the frigates. Let's find out. So we're losing some frigates. Only 3 destroyers lost so far. They are losing more frigates by the looks of it, actually being destroyed. See the armour getting whittled down there. We're down 20 frigates, 21. Okay, let's check the damage. So medium plasmas are doing a good amount of damage. Space torpedoes are coming in second to the plasma. Blue lasers doing good. Point defences 1689. So they're obviously intercepting a lot of missiles, a lot of torpedoes, which is helping keep that damage down. Damage to armour, yeah, space torpedoes because they're going through the shields, so they're doing good damage there. You see the lasers, plasma are doing well. And then you got, I got our coil guns which are impacting the shields. Okay. So it's looking like this fleet combination is effective against the frigates. Okay, so frigates had 43 ships left. We've lost 1 cruiser and 3 destroyers. They've lost 37 frigates. So once again, it's clearly a victory for the opposing fleet. So that's 5,624 alloy cost versus 1,285 in losses. So that's a pretty realistic battle early on. So you can see that destroyer combination of 3 cruisers to 3 destroyers to 1 cruiser rather, against a mass of frigates, 80 odd frigates, was enough to minimise the damage from those torpedoes to the cruisers, because the torpedoes will focus fire the cruisers first, being the larger ship. They will go for that. So the fact we only lost one cruiser is excellent. That was a good result, I thought. So that's how you can combat frigates if someone's coming to your frigates early. So what I'd like to test next is, because a lot of people may not have cruisers by this stage of the game in that first 30-40 years. Some people just don't have the tech, or are playing not a meta build, I guess, to rush tech and get to this point, or they have the alloys to build a fleet like this. So let's test out, instead of having cruisers in the fleet, let's just say you've got mostly destroyers, and let's see how we go with that. So for this battle, we've got our 80 frigates, which is unchanged, same fleet. And for this fight, we've got 40 destroyers. Now for this mix, we've got a mix of 20 point defense destroyers and 20 Brawler type destroyers, which we've used previously in the previous battles. So we've got the PD here, same lasers, PD, everything's the same as we used in our previous battles. And we've got a kinetic, laser, plasma destroyers. So I've opted for this so we can have some firepower to get the shields down, some lasers, because I do like lasers. Lasers are quite good because they're instant hit or instant fire. They do damage quite quick, or most of the weapons are calculated quite instantly, actually, to various degrees in the Stellaris combat system. And plasma. Plasma is very, very good. I think plasma and lasers are very good till about mid-game, and then they start to get overtaken by the neutron launchers, devastator torpedoes, X-slot weapons, large slot artillery and things like that. Just starts to overwhelm them a bit, but I would keep these as secondary weapons, very effective. You've got a mix of shields, armor, afterburners, and nothing's changed in these ship design. The only ratio, we've got 20 and 20, so we've got 4 less point defense destroyers in this battle than the previous, and that's to keep it at 80 fleet cap. And if I wanted 24 point defense destroyers, then I'd only have 16 of my Brawler type destroyers, which is really cutting into the firepower. So I wanted to make it an even split 20-20 versus the same 80 frigates. So let's see how this goes, because a lot of people won't have cruisers. So this is to simulate an early fight with destroyers. There's 5 frigates down already, a couple of destroyers. You can see that firepower keeps dropping. We are losing a few destroyers. You see all these blue lasers everywhere. Those plasmas coming in. It's hard to see the kinetic weapons in that. Oh, just one big blue ball. Okay, let's have a look at the damage. It looks like the frigate's going to lose again by the look of it. So plasmas doing well again, like the previous battle. Space torpedoes. So it's interesting to see that the plasmas are outdoing the damage from the torpedoes, and that would be because you can see the point defense down there has killed, done 1287 damage to the torpedoes. So that's very good, and you can see the blue lasers in there. They're doing good. Damage to shields, and this is where damage to armor. This is where torpedoes get through, because they go straight through the shields, straight to the armor. Still, the plasma's doing good. Lasers doing good, and the coil guns are hammering down the shields as expected. Like our frigates have lost this one again. Now I just want to pause it right here. So let's have a look at the damage. Sentinel point defense 2,296. And how much our torpedoes got? Hit points is at 10. Hull points 4. So divide that figure. Sentinel point defense by 4. 2,296. So what's that, about 750 something torpedoes they've killed, plus the missiles, because they're also firing missiles. The hull points in missiles 3. So it'd be a mix of both missiles and torpedoes that they're firing. The fire rate of that's 8.5 and that's 20.7. Yeah, so probably a lot more damage to the missiles than torpedoes. But we can see the damage from missiles, barely anything. Only 1,000 there. And they obviously go straight through shields. So the missiles are completely ineffective. So why don't we change missiles on our frigates? Maybe we should just use something like plasma. Maximum damage, rip into these destroyers. Although I don't think it's going to change the outcome. Yeah. So how many did we lose? So we lost 4 destroyers, 5 destroyers all up. And they've lost 37 frigates again, so pretty similar outcome. What was the alloy cost? 1245, and it's not showing me that, probably because it's retreated somewhere else, has it? Yeah, be about 5,000-6,000 anyway, like the previous battle. So similar result. Let's try another battle. Okay, so for this fight we've got our same frigates. Actually, the frigates have changed a little bit. I put the plasma in instead of the missile, so to give us more firepower when we're up close and personal, because the missiles just don't seem to be working really well, to be honest. And we've got our same fleet of destroyers, which remains unchanged, with the PD destroyers and the early Brawler type class. So we'll see how this goes, see if the frigates do any better or not. Oh no, unemployment. Maybe a lot of plasma balls going here. Doesn't seem to be changing the outcome much at the moment, because it's just probably not enough firepower to get through their shields. Yeah, I think this battle's over. Yep, so another easy win for the destroyers. They did even worse, so the missiles seem to do better because the plasma just can't get through the shields. They're just not doing enough damage. So that's one of the problems with plasma and lasers, when you don't have any kinetic to go with it. So probably maybe the best complementary design for the frigates, maybe Disruptor, go through the shields and armor, assist the torpedoes doing their damage. That's all I could do. But I'm not going to test it again because it's too one-sided. It's not going to overturn 38 destroyers. So what this shows is that, like in my previous battles, frigates, you need an escort. You need screens. You need something to go with the frigates to fight with the destroyers. So let's just do one quick more battle where the frigates have got a screen, and let's see how that goes. Okay, so what we've got for this fight, we've got our same fleet of destroyers. There's no changes in that. The 20 PDs and the 20 Brawler type destroyers. For this fight, we've got 20 Brawler type destroyers to act as a screen for our frigates, and we've got 40 of our frigates. So we've got 20 of the same design of destroyers, just to see how these guys would go. And then we've got our frigates. We've got 40 of them, and that's the one good thing about frigates. They only cost 1 point. So when you start getting the mixed fleets, so hopefully 20 destroyers is half of that fleet, and then 40 frigates might do some reasonable damage to those destroyers. Let's find out, see if this is a better battle. So still losing frigates. They've lost 4 destroyers, we've lost 3 destroyers. Fleet power is sort of still going down quicker on this side. They are losing destroyers. We've lost 11 frigates, 12, 13. Yeah, more retreating. 6 destroyers. Yeah, probably just not killing enough of them yet. Down 10. Just have a look at this damage. Although we've got comparable fleets. As you can see, the plasmas in there, they're doing quite a bit. So the space torpedoes are right down the bottom there, just not getting through. So the reduced numbers of frigates at 40 with 20 PD destroyers, they're just not getting through to do damage. So that's when we've got 50% of our fleet doing PD. Still plasmas up there against the armor, which you expect. The coil guns there. So you can see there, torpedoes even on it for armor. They haven't done any damage to the armor. So our frigates are pretty much useless. They're just 40 frigates. I haven't got enough numbers of torpedoes to get through the point defense screen. Alright, so we did kill more destroyers in that battle, so that was good. The screens did a lot of damage, I imagine. So we lost 18 frigates and 10 destroyers, and they lost 10, 13 destroyers. So more losses. Not a one-sided victory at all, but they still won. So you can see there they had 20 destroyers, which was 40 PD, against our 40 torpedoes being fired by the frigates, which was enough to saturate the torpedoes. So if you got one, so it looks like it's 1 for 1 PD for a torpedo, because there's 40 point defenses, 2 for each destroyer, versus 40 torpedoes from the frigates. So that was yeah, that was interesting. So that's a good ratio to look at for the future when you're doing your fleets. If you know your enemy is running, you know, swarms of frigates or using torpedo cruisers against you. So you basically need a 1 for 1 per torpedo. You need a point defense, but then you run into the problem of diminishing returns as well. If you start going too much down that path, you lose too much firepower to your fleets, particularly in the later game when you got the high-end weapons. But this was a good test to see how to combat frigates in the early mid-games. The frigates are still very powerful, but you need to be able to screen them properly, and these fleets were optimized to counter them. Which and we know corvettes will just decimate frigates if they're not screened. So I don't even need to test that. I don't even really need to tell you guys that corvettes will just rip frigates apart. So if you want to protect them against corvettes, you're probably going to need your own fleet of corvettes. And as some of the other people comments have said, people may run different types of fleets so that you can, like mono fleets, instead of having the destroyers together, you might have separate fleets. of destroyers. One might be a point defense, one might be a brawler type. You might have a corvette fleet, and you run you might hold your corvettes back, and you put your PD forward, and however you want to fight it. You might have different smaller fleets work in conjunction rather than one big fleet that sort of moves in. But even as you've seen in these combination battles, the combat computers do work, because artillery ships will stay towards the rear while the picket ships will rush forward, or your torpedoes, frigates will charge into the battle, and they'll move forward while your other ships stay back. So it does work. You may not have to micro it that bad, but some people like to run mono fleets of different designs and just micro it that way, which is also effective. So we've seen here the point defenses can work when you've got the right setup and you know what your enemy's got. But the point is, you need to know what your enemy's got, because if you're in a PvP situation and you put 20 of your destroyers on point defense, losing 2 weapon slots, and your enemy's just coming at you with 40 standard destroyers or weapons, you lose, because you've cut a significant part of your fleet firepower out. And they didn't come with missiles, they came with all plasmas and lasers and kinetic. That's why it's going to be hard to combat who's running with what. So at least if you see frigates, you know what they're coming at you with, and you know how much point defenses you're going to need. You've just seen the results here. So at least that's one thing. But if you don't see frigates, it's going to be harder to counter, because like cruisers could be torpedo, or just a plain brawler type or artillery type ship, even a carrier type ship. So it starts getting more difficult once you see cruisers on the field. You'd have to have a look at their, if you can see their firepower, you might be able to judge by their firepower. That might be a way to do it, but that's pretty difficult. Alright, I'll leave that here for today. So if you like this video, hit that like button for me. Subscribe to my channel. I will be doing some more videos. I'll be making some videos about how to do your own testing as well. I'll probably do that tomorrow. And there'll be some other videos that some people have suggested that they would like. Alright, see you again soon.